So welcome to Prime. Very excited to have Donna Addy with us this morning. She's literally like a burst of sunshine. So I'm really excited to have her speak. This program is sponsored by Allegiance Home Health. And now I was saving you for last since you're with Allegiance. So since you're sponsoring this event, and we thank you for that, go ahead and speak for a couple minutes.
Okay, well, it's absolutely a pleasure to see all these familiar faces. Some of you have been in the field, and I have the pleasure to see you in person, but I see like Donna, for example, I haven't seen in a while. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be sponsoring your event today. Allegiance Home Health is a 5-star rated home health agency located in Boca Raton, Florida. We cover 3 counties, Broward, Palm Beach County, and the Treasure Coast. We offer at the comfort of your home physical therapy, speech therapy. We have a social worker on board. We have also different other types of services. I mean, private duty. Just basically, you just need to contact me, Debbie, or all of you know Emily Lawless in Boca. And we're here, you know, for all of you, for all your services and all your needs.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So before I introduce Donna, if you want to put your information in the chat, there is an easy way to copy that so you'll have everybody's information. There's 3 dots to the side, and that'll let you copy the information. And Donna, did you want, if people have questions, do you want to along the way? Okay. So if you have questions, just raise your hand along the way, and you know, Donna or I will see you for that. So without further ado, Donna Addy is the Community Relations Manager for V at Lakeside Village in Lantana, with more than 2 decades of experience in senior living. Throughout her career, she has worked for the country's top-tier owners, developers, managers, and operators in the senior living industry. Prior to joining V Living, she represented 5-star quality care, Life Care Services, and the Artists Corporation. She has served in sales, public relations, and marketing roles for independent, assisted living, memory care, and continuing care retirement communities in both Maryland and in South Florida. As the public face for V at Lakeside Village, a Life Care CCRC, Donna communicates newsworthy and positive stories through traditional earned media sources and social media channels. She also does what she loves best, and that is interacting with the V residents, develops relationships with influencers primarily in the financial, legal, and healthcare sectors, strives to make mutually beneficial introductions, and seeks out strategic corporate sponsorships for nonprofit events and programs. Donna, a native New Yorker, is a graduate of SUNY at Oswego, where she earned a BA in sociology. And Donna, it's all you.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been part of the chamber for 14 years now, and I love the Boca Chamber, and I love every part of it. So I'm really glad to be here today. I was wondering, have you ever found yourself navigating on autopilot during your commute to work? And yes, some of us still have to commute to work, or while driving to a routine destination, and realize you're relatively disengaged with your surroundings. Just yesterday morning, as I was driving along thinking about this presentation, I looked to my right and I said, oh, I just missed my turn. So I'm guessing that I'm not alone. One day you're driving along and you realize that there is a big area of space that has been cleared, and you notice a temporary fence around it. And at first you're thinking, why didn't I see this before? This could not have happened overnight. Then you start to think, what do you think they're going to put in there? A Wawa's, a self-storage building. If we're lucky, a Wegmans grocery store, or possibly an Amazon warehouse. To eventually learn a senior living residence is being constructed. And your first thoughts might be, why should I care about a senior living when I'm still working and I won't be moving in there anytime soon. Well, stay tuned to the end because I think together we're going to figure out why you should care. Before I answer that question, though, let's jump into the economic impact the senior living industry has on the state of Florida to the tune of $14.5 billion. Argentum, who is a leading national association dedicated to supporting companies who are operating professionally managed senior living communities, hired Tripp Umbach, a world's leading consulting firm, to prepare an economic impact study. And they realized the following results. 57.6 thousand jobs are directly supported by Florida's senior living industry. 53.5 thousand jobs are indirectly supported. 647 million is generated in government revenue, and 82.6 million in social responsibility. That falls under environmental leadership, support of philanthropic organizations, serving on regional boards and councils, college programs for their employees, sponsoring of local charity events, and advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. The top industries that are impacted by Florida's senior living are construction management and consulting services, employment services, and real estate. Impressive spending is also found on goods and services, with a variety of suppliers, plus spending on staff and visitors also. Not only does the senior living industry have an impact on its own payroll, it also impacts suppliers and contributes to the overall economic activity that it creates. Are you picking up yet that undoubtedly your business is being positively impacted? It should come as no surprise that an unprecedented flood of money is entering the senior housing capital markets and all types of investors. REITs, real estate investment trusts, institutional funds, and private equity are seeking opportunities to get into this space. According to Todd Lindblom, National Director of Marcus and Millichap's Senior Housing Division, most investors seeing housing as a long-term institutional grade asset class, and they are more focused on future demand as baby boomers age. The senior living industry remains one of the most attractive investment classes in commercial real estate today. As a result, more banks are returning to the space and underwriting the financing for construction and development. To give you a sense of 5 very recent transactions that have occurred in Palm Beach County, the Jewish Federation sold an affordable senior housing complex to real estate firm Fairstead for $33.75 million. Lone Star Funds bought 2 senior living complexes for $57 million in Boca and Palm Beach Gardens. M&T Bank provided $45.8 million conventional construction loans for a West Palm Beach senior living project. JLL Capital Markets, and these are all really big players, specializing in real estate and investment management, arranged for a $64 million sale of a 5-property senior housing portfolio located in Palm Beach, Indian River, and Broward counties. And the 5th example, Newmark Commercial Real Estate Services arranged a $46 million in construction financing through Co-America Bank for a 187 unit in Del Rey for the Holden Development Group. These examples are just a snapshot of the activity that is happening in the senior living sector in Florida and definitely Palm Beach County. So why is this sector causing such a stir in South Florida? 2 words. They're coming. Not to get too bogged down on the stats, but according to the US Census Bureau, 1 in every 5 Americans are projected to be of retirement age in less than a decade, and all baby boomers will be 65 by the year 2030. That adds up to 10,000 a day. Therefore, if you are at least 40 years old, there's a better than average chance that you have a baby boomer parent. Prior to 2020, March of 2020, 1,000 people per day were moving to Florida. According to Howard Crooks, a Boca elder law attorney licensed in Florida and New York, over 4,000 New York residents moved to Palm Beach County alone between September 2020 and March 2021, although obviously not all boomers. Why? What do you think are the drivers to this migration? If you answer lower taxes, lower cost of living, and a year-round active lifestyle, no personal income tax, as well as an increase in companies expanding or relocating to our Sunshine State, then you are right. Quoting Troy McKellen, our CEO of the Chamber, Florida is traditionally associated with retirees, but this trend seems to be fading as more families and young high flyers move to the area. I certainly agree with Troy, but I would add that these days, when the younger families come, so do their senior parents. Years ago, seniors would wave goodbye to their children and grandchildren and head south to the sand, surf, and greens. I remember in 1960, my grandmother did that, but that was the beginning of my love affair of Florida, so I'm always grateful. Now it's one long caravan of families and extended families making their way to our southern state. What do you think? Should we explore investing in the moving industry? I see those vans up and down 95 all day long. Palm Beach County is Florida's 4th most populous county. And according to the Florida Legislature's Office of Economic and Demographic Research, it is expected that in 2022, our population will reach more than 1.5 million. That's just in Palm Beach County. In 2015, the projected numbers for 2020 were even across the board between the ages of 20 and 74, with a decrease starting at age 75 and upward. But a lot has happened since 2015. And so those numbers will undoubtedly look different the next time they're reported. So how is senior living defined? It's a living option for older adults planning for or needing of care. Most people don't wake up in the morning and say, I know, today I'm going to move into a senior living community. Instead, they often wait for something to happen. They think they will make that decision at that time, but often that is not possible. We see adult children come in and tell us an alarming incident has occurred. Mom or dad has to have more care. They put the house on the market and moving day arrives sooner than anyone planned. This is not the ideal scenario. It's not easy on anyone involved. It does come down to having difficult conversations and discussing the best options. How do people choose a senior living? Well, as I've indicated, often it is not done proactively. And we recommend people to be proactive versus reactive even though they adamantly insist they are not ready. Well, just like when you are car shopping and you suddenly feel bombarded by automobile commercials and you seem to notice every single car on the highway, now that I'm bringing senior living to your attention, you'll notice a number of freestanding assisted livings or memory care residences, which are almost always need-driven. Example of a need-driven situation might be an older adult has fallen in their home. Do they still do that commercial? I've fallen and I can't get up? Not really sure. They are transported to the hospital and they are scheduled for hip replacement surgery. The surgery goes well, they get discharged to a rehabilitation facility where they're going to have physical therapy. This rehabilitation facility will be connected to a skilled nursing facility. And in your mind, you might also be thinking nursing home. Upon completing their physical therapy, the social worker might say, the good news is your parent has met their physical therapy goals, but it is not safe for them to be discharged to their own home to live alone. You need to consider an assisted living or a memory care community. Here is a list of places in the area. Give them a call and see if they have a room available. You're thinking, what? The adult child is still trying to find their parents' toothbrush and now they're being told mom can't live alone? Now they're making choices from a crisis. Now they're making decisions from a place of crisis and high stress. Those decisions are often made by the adult children versus the parent who often feels they are losing control of their life. I don't know, has anyone ever had this experience personally? I can tell from those who are on the call, you know, you understand completely, but when it happens to you personally, it really brings it home. I'm here to provide a brief understanding of the 4 property types that fall under the umbrella of senior living. CCRCs, which are continued care retirement communities, are also known as life care communities. They are for older adults who have planned for their future and want the peace of mind that comes with having various levels of care available all on one site. There are different types of continuing care programs, and I will speak to the type A, which is what V-Living offers. Upon getting medically and financially qualified, an individual signs a residency contract. They pay an entrance fee and a monthly fee that does not increase as the result of them moving to the care center that offers a continuum of care, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing when a higher level of care is needed. Rental independent livings tend to be reactive. The individual selects an apartment. They might be charged what is called a community fee or security deposit, and they pay an ongoing rental fee for that apartment each month. A rental independent living may have assisted living on site, or it may have memory care, or may not. The rental community is not required to accept the resident at those higher levels of care. Their contract typically doesn't include the provision for their continued care. If higher care is required, the independent resident is medically assessed, and then they would pay what is called the market street rate, meaning what anyone off the street would pay. And that would be their new monthly fee. And the independent rental might offer supportive services like 3 meals a day and transportation, but it is truly a rental community. Higher levels of care are not included in their independent monthly rental rate. The benefit is that they do not have to have the financial assets as they would to move into a life care community. The reality is that the rent over time goes up significantly. And again, higher levels of care are not included. In fact, the resident may have to move off property to a place that better meets their needs. When a couple comes in, I always say they do not share the same DNA. And in the event your better half has to move off campus, it can be much more inconvenient and certainly cause your life to be upended. Assisted livings were developed in the mid-'80s to early 2000. I got into the industry in 1998. They are run by privately owned and publicly owned companies, and they are considered a rental unless they are unless they are part of a type A community. The entrance requirement for an assisted living is they need assistance with activities of daily living, which the abbreviation is ADLs. Might be medication management, bathing assistance, help with walking, help with toileting, and even help with eating. A doctor fills out a form, states the needs of the patient, any diagnoses, and the medication that they've been prescribed. Assisted livings are typically in a residential type setting with much smaller one-bedroom apartments or studios. And it's important to look at the various assisted livings that are out there. The staffing is made up of CNAs, which stands for Certified Nursing Assistants, who have taken a course and have earned a certificate, as well as LPNs, licensed practical nurses, and sometimes there's an RN on site, a registered nurse who has earned her 4-year nursing degree. The expense is the key, running anywhere from $60,000 to $90,000 a year. Medicare does not pay for assisted living. It is known as private pay, meaning the cost of living is paid out of your own pocket. I won't get into the ins and outs of skilled nursing, which is a clinical setting where you'll find nurses and physicians. Skilled nursing, also known as SNFs, provide round-the-clock care. Medicare, not to be confused with Medicaid, may pay for a portion of your short-term physical rehabilitation, like the person who had to, after they had their hip replacement, they went in there for physical rehab. Medicare may pay for a portion of that. Then, if the individual has to remain there long-term, the charge converts to private pay, meaning it comes out of your assets. And at roughly $350 a day for a shared room, that your assets get eaten up fast. There are cases where your long-term care policy can help defray your cost, but that's a complex subject that goes beyond really my scope of knowledge. There is an option to stay home with home care that is brought in, and I'm just going to throw out a figure of $14 an hour, and that can run up to $336 a day. Go ahead, Allison.
Somebody asked a question in the chat box. I just wanted to read it to you. Do we know the percentage of people that move into one of these facilities and then need to move to a higher level of care?
Moves into like an independent, like a CCRC or, I honestly don't know. I'm going to say if they move into an independent, whether it's rental or a life care community, the percentage is much lower. I have seen that working here at V. It's a relatively low percentage. Residents here live here about 10, 12 years before their healthcare changes. Though we have many that have been here for 24 years, still an independent. So I think it's relatively low. If they move from home, then if their health has declined, they often don't go to independent and they go right to assisted or memory. But I don't know the actual statistics.
Okay. And if anybody else has questions, you can just raise your hand or feel free to put it in the chat box. Rosemary has a question.
Yeah, hi, Donna. Great information. As I was thinking about your program, I had a couple of questions. The first being is, is there a database of how many facilities that fit into those categories of continuing care, assisted living, memory care, and so forth?
Yes.
How many actual facilities there are in Palm Beach County? My second question, I'll get it all out there. How many people are currently living in these facilities? And what percent of the over 50 population do you think they comprise?
Good questions. Don't have all the answers.
I thought you'd be the one. Nobody else seems to have the information.
I would love, I'm a researchaholic, so feel free to write those down and I would be happy to include them and send them out. I was thinking about the CCRCs, and I'd say in Palm Beach County alone, there are, I believe, 8. And that's really a pretty big number. In other states and other counties, they would not have that number. That's a big amount. Memory care, we know that Artist, which April was on, Artist has a freestanding memory care, and Arden Courts has a freestanding memory care. I think they might be the only 2 freestanding in the county. Assisted livings, I can't even keep up. There are so many. I mean, the other day I was driving down Southwest 18th heading towards 441, and I look at a sign and I think it said Embark. And I'm like, that sounds like an assisted living. And it was. Because as I talked to you about the Capitol, I mean, they are popping up all over, but there is a site, I think it's called the Assisted Living Facilities, Palm Beach County. I mean, it's a state site and it will list many. I mean, there's many that you'll never know because there's even small ones where there's even a 6-bedroom, but I'm not really talking about them because they're not as commercial, obviously not commercially run, but there is a list of all the assisted livings.
Thank you, Donna. I'd like to talk with you offline about this more because we're very interested in the engagement of seniors in facilities, in volunteer work in the community as to keep them connected. And we're actually looking at the possibility of a research project with university on this as part of dealing with social isolation and so forth. So a conversation for another time, but you know where I'm going with it.
I do, and I'm very interested in learning more about it.
Okay, great.
Anyone else before I continue?
If I can just ask a question real quick. I'm curious to know, Pat shared in several of our conversations, there's a nursing shortage. How has that impacted your industry? And with the recently approved minimum wage going up to $15, do you see that impacting the industry as well? And also, you find that there's still skilled employees out there to retain?
Well, we are having a job fair in, I think it's maybe about 3 weeks. And we, just like everybody else, are looking for skilled workers. We have a fantastic training program. So we are really thinking outside the box. I think just like other employers are, because people these days, they have a choice to stay home, and until that changes, it's going to be really interesting, but we don't want to wait till September till things change. So we are very well staffed. What we're looking for right now predominantly is wait staff, and those are typically kids who are in college, and they're looking for opportunities. Because we have about 300 employees, we're constantly looking, to find good people. And I know my sister properties out there are struggling with the same thing. So yes, things have really, and people either will choose to not work or they'll leave for a quarter. I mean, it's crazy. so they have the opportunity. I mean, I think employees really have an opportunity to really choose who they want, but we're very fussy, very, very fussy. And so we will not just hire anyone, but we will hire somebody. If they have a good spirit and a good attitude, we'll train them. So we're always looking for good people.
I have a question. 60 to 90,000 a year is quite a lot.
Yeah.
Where do you find that most of the people are getting these kinds of funds?
Their savings. I mean, often children don't help. It usually comes out of the parents' savings. Now, in assisted living, you can expect to stay about 5 years. Used to be 2 years. Things have really changed. So 5 years. So 5 times 60, it was 300,000. That's not typical. That's not really unusual for, say, for our customers. But it does sound expensive. That's why you really have to look around. And even when I gave you the rates of staying at home, I mean, it's very, very expensive. So I think all of us know if we aren't taking care of ourselves now, let's get started.
If people are they using long-term care to make up?
If they have it, not everybody has long-term care. I mean, I don't have it. Not everyone has it. It got to be very expensive. You know, at $5,000 a year, a lot of people had to make choices back in the recession time, and they dropped their policies. So it's healthcare and long-term care and any of that is going to be a challenge for us boomers. And if you have children, be really nice to them. Yes, Rosemary.
As you know, I was a financial advisor with Ameriprise for many years, and I would not let clients out of my office till we had talked about the purchase of a long-term care policy. This was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I bought my policy 20 years ago and been paying premiums ever since. But, and I hope to never use it, actually. Hope to kick off quickly. I think I see a lot of younger people on this call, and I think that they need to be thinking about these things early on, not just for themselves, but so that they won't be on the hook for their parents' expenses later on.
I agree.
I'm sorry, just to chime in, having watched my mother-in-law go through hospice and still be denied use of her long-term care until her very last months was shocking. So there's a bad taste about long-term care and how bad you need to be before, because there's a pride that element, like, can you still dress yourself? She answered the questions incorrectly. She was denied her long-term care benefits. So
It's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah, it was an issue. Thank you.
And I do say, if you're going to get one, pay somebody, not the person who's selling it to you, but pay someone to review it. Maybe pay their competition, because they're going to find things in it. I mean, the wording is very ambiguous. And it would be well worth your time to pay someone to look over that policy. That's just my only opinion about long-term care. But I see people come in and they'll be very proud and they'll say, I have $100 a day long-term care. I mean, I just told you rates. $100 is going to help. We know that, of course. But really, I really be thinking and asking me, you know, if I wasn't here, I would hope you would call me and say, I'm thinking about buying a policy. What are the rates now? How often do the rates go up? You know, so you can help project. I've given talks to people who sell long-term care and they really don't ask me anything about that. They don't ask me about the rates. They don't ask me about projections. And so just feel free to call me anytime you want if you're thinking about buying one. Not that I know about the policies, but I can give you some information of what you might want to be looking for.
Donna, Albert has a question.
Okay.
Yes, good morning, Donna. Yeah, as far as like financing long-term care, there is, when our seniors being on a fixed income with Social Security. And I mean, this is something that, you know, where do they get it for financing? One option could possibly be reverse mortgage, home equity mortgage. And that you don't get penalized with that. That's kind of outside my lane. But if somebody on this panel here is more familiar with the reverse home mortgages, that could possibly address that, where could they possibly get additional financing for a long-term care plan?
I don't know if anyone on this call sells that, but that's a very good point, especially when you're living in your home and your spouse may have to go to memory care and you still need to be living in your home. I have seen people do that. And another thing where they get the money is they sell their house. Just looking at you, and I have my real estate license, and I took the certification that you have, Albert. And even after being in senior living, I found that class to be really in depth and more informative than I almost expected. So I know you have a lot of good information. And so one of the things they do is, of course, sell their home. And right now, we know what the real estate is doing. So again, those are one of those difficult conversations that you have with families.
Thank you, Donna.
Sure. Should I continue? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So we talked about the option of staying at home. And as we're talking about right now, the appropriate options come down to available finances and wanting to be in control of choice when additional care is needed. And it's an emotional decision, no matter how you cut it, and being educated when having to execute your plan really eliminates a lot of the cost and the burden and just the general angst, as Candace had mentioned. My heart goes out to you about that. Now, switching gears, you might be asking, well, how am I going to create the life I want? And there's a new category emerging in kind of, I guess you would call it senior living, and it's called active adult rental communities. Now, this is different than what we're familiar with, the active adult 55 plus residential. It's got the senior living developers buzzing. Its targeted demographic is for baby boomers who are on the younger side, because the typical age of someone who moves into, say, a community like V would be 80 and up. And these developers are realizing, hey, we're leaving a lot of money on the table here. We've got a group of people who are 65 to 80 or so, and they're just staying in their home. So let's come up with something, and they have. It's very new, and they're still working on it. There are a couple places I think that have opened here in Palm Beach County, but it's a new concept. But it's really for those who want a flexible, easy breezy lifestyle, living in an apartment style building, but they will not have any of the maintenance and responsibilities whatsoever that you would have if you were living in your own home. And the developers are partnering with seasoned senior living operators. And from what I'm reading, there's no shortage of capital. And I've read that that is where the smart money is headed. Hint, hint, hint. You know, keep an eye on that because there are going to be opportunities. I am like super excited about it. Boomers are often social by nature and look for opportunities to have cookouts, rooftop happy hours, access to on-site therapeutic spa-like services and personal wellness programs. live concerts, the ability to advance their hobbies, learning a second language. They may want to become an influencer, an Instagram influencer or a YouTuber. And so they're going to be looking for digital media instruction. So I can really see studios with that now. They want to have the option of having gourmet dining or just grab and go from a bistro, and even sports bars. These will all be on one campus. It may sound like, oh gosh, she's talking about it sounds like it's going to be steep competition. For me, I feel it's going to be a creative solution. It's going to be a nice gap. People like to still have nice things. They want to be surrounded in whatever their definition of luxury is. And companies like my own V, we are always on the cutting edge of developing what's going on now. And then we also take a long view. I'm not saying we're developing one, although hint, hint, people, I hope we are. But I think of it more like living on an upscale camp or on a fine college campuses. And there are communities, including one of ours in California, that is on a college campus. And lifelong learning is a big factor. And I think boomers are really interested in that. And that leads me to the 1980s sitcom, which I think you know where I'm going with this, The Golden Girls. Now, I didn't really watch that show, but I certainly am aware of it. And I think many people have heard that term. And it's not unusual to be with a group of women who will say, we're all going to buy a house and we're going to live in it together. And because they saw it on TV, but that's the magic of TV. It seems like it might be a good idea, but eventually, and not that I really watched it, but I know there were some health scares. And one of the residents one of the actors in real life and on the television, I think she developed dementia. So when you're all fine and you're happy and you're sitting around drinking your wine and you're thinking, yes, let's all live together. It's all fun and games until someone's healthcare changes. So I'm not against that idea, and I'm actually thinking about it for myself. But you have to also know that that was the magic of TV, and there are real life situations out there. Really, to wrap this up, I thought, okay, I better show you the money so you can figure out how you can be part of this gigantic industry here in South Florida. So I looked at well, first of all, to get started, when a building is being constructed, it's designed by an architect. So if you're an architect, of course, engineers come in, interior designers, HVAC systems, plumbing, fire suppression and detection, electricians, plumbers, roofers, roads, permits and licenses and inspections. These all generate income for the county. But I looked at the chamber directory and I realized it was actually easier for me to say, which I'm not going to go through, I think, but it was actually easier for me to say who might not benefit, because as I go down, it's amazing. You just might not be thinking about it. I was making some notes about who's here. So we have two different people who do placements. That means a family contacts them and says, mom needs to go to an assisted living. Mom broke her hip, she's at the rehab, social worker gave me a list, but your name was on the list, Sabrina. And they will contact Sabrina, and Sabrina will find the best place for that individual. And she will take that individual out and show them, the different types of assisted livings. Someone else may need memory care. Someone else may need a place like ours, where they're still very vibrant, they're independent, they're still going out to the Kravitz Center, they're still enjoying their bridge games. they're still like volunteering, but they don't want to live alone. So someone, a placement counselor will call me up and say, I have somebody for you. Can you come meet with them? And we will. We have banks. I've already talked about the banks. But not only the banks for the big construction project, but a lot of people move here from out of state and they need a bank. So they constantly are coming to us like, where do we what banks do we go to? So anybody in banking definitely can benefit by the influx of people in one of these new senior livings or an established one. We have hospice, of course. We know that's a very valuable care and palliative care. It's very important. We have that. We bring in fact, we use TrustBridge here on our campus. Real estate, to move into our community, it's not unusual for someone to sell their home. And so they again turn to us, who do we recommend? And I always love getting to know real estate agents because they really know. They have their finger on the pulse of what's going on. Advertising, whether you're established or you're brand new, you need advertising, you need marketing, you need promotional items. Let's see, we have estate planning. Again, this is something you should be doing before you need it. But families come to us and they say, or the independent will say to us, I have all my documents together. Okay, when was it drawn up? Well, my husband and I drew them up in New York City in, 30 years ago. Totally need to be reevaluated. First of all, this is Florida, it's not New York. And second of all, you may have listed people on your will to be your executive director, executive healthcare, who you're not even friends with anymore, or that person's dead, or for whatever reasons, you wouldn't want them taking care of your decisions if you're not able to. So I really recommend contacting Susan and she'll connect you. Let's see, what else do we have? Of course, we have Rosemary with Encore, and volunteering is very big. I work very, very closely with a lot of organizations in Palm Beach County, and our residents still do volunteer work. They may be working at the food bank, or they may be making quilts for children who are sick. They do a lot of volunteering inside too, but certainly someone like Rosemary's group. And I've told Rosemary, we have so many employees here who have been here 20 and 30 years. My sales director has been with my company for 30 years. I always say she must have started when she was a candy striper at 12, but we do have longevity, and this is an industry that hires baby boomers. I really recommend, if you are 40 and over or 50 and over, to look at the senior livings, because there's more than likely going to be a job for you. It's definitely an industry where age is a good factor, which we know. We can't say that about everything. I was looking at, of course, I talked about attorneys, even coffee companies. When I was coming in, I was following a truck with landscaping. We're on 46 acres here. So our property is very lush, and we need landscapers all the time. Computers, we all have computers. IT, you get new computers. Credit unions. I know there was somebody on here from a credit union. We use a credit union. Event, when we did the vaccinations in January for all our employees and residents, we had to get tents. So event rentals, I've had things where I've had to get more tables and chairs. Obviously financial, when somebody comes to us and they're deciding to really think about moving forward, they will say, I have to talk to my financial advisor. I have to talk to my CPA. I've had presentations here with those kinds of individuals to provide information, not necessarily to the residents who are here, but for individuals outside. I'm looking right outside, we have flags. We need some new flags. So if you're a seller of flags, many senior livings like to have flags. Fitness, we have employees who are fitness instructors, and then we bring in for, say, the yoga and the Tai Chi and the Qigong. Flooring, not only after a place has been built from the ground up, but these things need to be replaced. So it's not unusual for a company to need new flooring, new carpeting, new cabinets. Eventually we're going to be building a new auditorium. That will be a whole group of people that will want to be part of that. Professionals in your industry may very well want to get in on that. We recently did a $6 million renovation. And again, these are the kinds of things that your business may very well want to be part of. Insurance, naturally. And in fact, our residents get rental insurance. So if you're an insurance broker and you're thinking, oh, well, now they're selling their home, they don't need insurance. No, they still will want insurance. Say marketing, mortgage, payroll systems, pressure cleaning. We have our properties pressure cleaned. Naturally, roofing. Roofs don't last forever. We have commercial kitchens here. So if you're selling supplies, wealth management. So even veterinarians, because our residents have dogs and cats and they need to have vets. So really everyone that's here, I know for sure you could be part of the senior living industry, but I want you to be thinking broader. So when you're driving down the road and you are lost in thought and all of a sudden you see a sign that says, you know, senior living is being constructed, or you go past one all the time which you've never paid attention to, but all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, what is that place? Be really thinking, how can I take my business and bring it to that organization? I guarantee, I know everyone on this call, but I guarantee there'll be a way to connect it. And if you can't really figure out an in, or you don't know who to call within an organization, give me a call. I'll hook you up. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Very comprehensive, very, very much appreciated. Does anybody have any other questions for Donna? Oh, Rosemary, saw your hand go up immediately.
Well, I'm a glutton for information. Donna, I can't quite get my mind around what you called active adult living community. It sounds like an over 55 community in a building. How is it different, you know, with social activities and rental apartments? I understand they're not individual homes, and you know, a restaurant or a bistro or whatever. How is it different from an over 55 community with a number of social amenities?
I think the biggest thing is the fact that not having to maintain your home. You can live in a 55 plus residence, and yes, your home can still be, you know, be painted, and maybe they do the landscaping, but if your hot water heater breaks in your own home, it's okay for a while, but sometimes if you've been thrown into being a single homeowner, sometimes you don't really know where to turn. I mean, I was living in a home by myself when I first moved here, and I thought I needed a hot water heater, because first you have to observe it, and then you have to figure out who you're going to call. And the person I called said I needed a hot water heater and it was going to cost me $800. Fortunately, I worked in senior living. I talked to one of the maintenance people, and he said, you know, it sounds like you need a temperature gauge. And I went to Home Depot and it was $3.50. So I don't own my own home anymore. And that's why I'm excited for it, because like I said, it's for people who really want the easy breezy lifestyle. It's it's just a different way of living than living in your home. When you live in your own home and you go to events, or you go to play cards, or you know, go out for dinner, when you come home, you're all by yourself. And when you're living in those kinds of environments, there's always someone outside your door if you choose to participate. But it's just, it does really get down more than ever to the socialization. I think all of us have heard that word isolation and socialization more than we ever heard it before over the last year and a half. And people just feel very isolated in their home. And even if they're a couple, they're like, you know what? I know someone, I won't say their name, but he's pretty well known in the chamber. And he and his wife sold their home and moved into a very lovely condominium in Boca. This takes it another step further, where it would not have the same cost as buying a beautiful condominium. So really it's just a different, the big thing is, honestly, they're trying to tap into those 70-year-olds, those 70, 75, 80-year-olds who they don't really want to live at home anymore, but they're not quite ready for a community like ours.
Is anything like that planned here in Palm Beach County?
Yes.
Do you
Yes,
know
sir.
what?
I think one starts with the A, and I kind of get the name wrong. It might be called like Arvida, or it's in Palm Beach Gardens, and I can get you the name for it. There are two that are starting here. So if there are two, they're going to be all over.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Anybody else? Any questions? Well, Donna, thank you. Thank you for the information. You can tell everybody had questions and they were engaged, and Susan's clapping. And so thank you, everybody, for being on this. Just a couple reminders. We do have a workshop on Tuesday morning, which is SEO for beginners. So I think that's going to be great. Successful Women in Business is live in person on June 17th. And of course, we have our Food, Wine, and Brew in Boynton Beach on June 25th. So please take a look at our calendar, sign up for stuff, enjoy, and most of all, have a beautiful Friday and a wonderful weekend. And thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you soon.
Can you put Donna's information in the chat?
Yeah, please contact me.
How?
She's in the directory, Eileen, or you can find her online. I don't have it offhand, so.
We'll share the information.
Okay.
You're good.
I just want to make one announcement. There's going to be a wellness